Victor Wembanyama has arrived in the NBA, and he has already been better than almost anybody expected him to be initially. And that is going to massively change not only what San Antonio is going to do this season, where their expectations are, but also how the rest of the league is going to try and build their teams over the next few seasons. Really quickly though, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Prize Picks. If you've never done Prize Picks before, with the NBA coming back, this is an awesome time to get started. And I have a great offer for you as well. You can get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks when you use code SPORTING. You click that link in the description and you are a first-time user. Now, if you are a first-time user, let me explain to you exactly what Prize Picks is. You go onto the site, you pick between 2 and 6 players, and you pick more or less for each of their numbers. There's a ton of really good numbers for the NBA, NFL. You can mix and match sports. It can be on different nights. It's a really fun way to kind of test your knowledge in terms of what you think is going to happen in each of these games. And it's just you against the numbers. You go through and you make your selections more or less, whether it be points, assists, combined points, assists, rebounds, 3-pointers made, whatever the case may be, between 2 and 6 entries. And if you get them correct, you could win up to 25 times your money. And again, you get that 100% instant deposit match up to $100 when you use code SPORTING or click the link in the description as well on Prize Picks. So if you don't want to compete against anybody else, you just want to compete against these numbers, you want to keep an eye out for some great promotions from Prize Picks coming up throughout the season as well, and you want to take advantage of that offer, you can click that link in the description or use code SPORTING and have a great time with Prize Picks this NBA season. And thank you again to Prize Picks for sponsoring this video. Now that might sound dramatic. That might sound like, okay, Tuck, it's only been a handful of games. Yes, he's an incredibly impactful player, but are other teams really going to start shifting the way that they change or the way that they build their teams? I think so. This is something that we see all the time. This is a cyclical thing within the NBA where we change from going to smaller teams, bigger teams, more skilled wings, more shooting, whatever the case may be. And I think there's a real possibility that over the next couple of seasons, as we enter into potentially the Victor Wembanyama era, we're going to start seeing teams really change how they build their team in an effort to try and counter the one strongest force that is in the league, which at that point could be Victor Wembanyama. Now, at this point, in terms of what it means for San Antonio this season, the expectations for them have certainly increased, not only in terms of wins, but the possibility of like pushing for the play-in game. There are games where he can just will his team to victories, especially if he's shooting the ball well. Some of that offensive stuff at times doesn't look great, but defensively, the impact that he can have is just unbelievable. And I think it's really important to understand that outside of like Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, the rest of the team is not very good. And the guards, especially outside of a couple of guys, are really, really not good. And even within that infrastructure, the Spurs are still managing to win games, partially and mostly because of how good he's been, as well as, some other guys like I mentioned, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson. And it's going to be interesting to see how San Antonio wants to continue to build around him moving forward, because they've been really committed to playing him alongside another big. They've been committed to trying to, maximize his defensive capabilities by playing him off the ball a lot. They're not afraid to have him guard on the ball. He's been good in that role as well. They've tried some point Sohan minutes. They're really trying to, experiment and figure out exactly what is going to fit well around Wembanyama. I think into the future, you're going to see much better guards around him, better wings, certainly that can shoot and defend better, but his position long-term is probably going to be at the 4. And if they can get, imagine a future theoretical version of someone like Kristaps Porzingis alongside Victor Wembanyama, someone that can space and that can protect the rim, that allows Wemby to be off the ball. Those two guys together in the front court, it wouldn't be literally Porzingis, but that's obviously a difficult archetype to find, but something like that, like even a Miles Turner kind of player, someone that can space the floor and protect the rim and keep that versatility that Wembanyama has going, could be incredible for them. Right now, it's a lot of Zach Collins, and like that's been fine, and I think it would still work in a kind of construction where it's a more traditional big. I honestly even think that like a Rudy Gobert, Wemby front court, like that kind of construction could work. But long term, they're going to look at, kind of a more mobile, floor spacing 5, I think, to play alongside Wemby and just have an incredible amount of length. But the point of this video was that teams are going to start thinking, I think, over the next couple of seasons, if he's really going to be this dominant, this good already at this young of an age, and then continues to grow and improve, how do we counter this? Because back when, the Warriors kind of rose to being the team in the league and they were shooting all these threes, teams started to figure out, okay, especially those Cleveland LeBron teams, how do we counter this? Okay, we need a ton of wings. We need to switch a lot. We need to play smaller. We need to play smaller with these guys, because the small ball units that Golden State was throwing out there with Draymond and with all the shooting was just destroying teams. And so they were having all these bigger bodies that were being played off the floor. And so teams started to go smaller and smaller. We started to see those Houston Rockets teams that would play, basically all wings and guards. And that was the counter to that. And then we went into this era where we had, Giannis and Embiid and Jokic, things started to get a little bit more physical in the front court, and those were the teams that, along with some others, were near the top of the league and were really competing with this dominant front court style. The Lakers in 2020 in the bubble as well are another example where, yes, you wanted to have skill and spacing and shooting, but you didn't want to sacrifice size because you still wanted to be able to guard the Jokic, Embiid's, Giannis, Anthony Davis, LeBron's of the world. And so teams started to go bigger, but it brought in this idea of like skilled size. Like you wanted 6'9" guys that could shoot and then also could guard, potentially at the rim or guard against these bigger guys. And you want to have at least one, good post defense big that's still mobile enough against some of those smaller units, but that can guard against guys like Jokic and Embiid. And through the years, whoever the best player in the league is has also necessitated a stopper for that guy, right? Like remember when there was all these different guys in the 2010s and a little bit further back than that were the LeBron stopper, right? Well, oh my gosh, this is the guy, Deshaun Stevenson, we're going to throw out there that's going to be the guy that's going to stop LeBron. And then all these teams started to bring up who they wanted to try and guard Giannis. Who's the guy that's going to try and, guard Giannis, all these different ways to guard him. And then as I mentioned, Jokic and Embiid. I know it's early for Wembanyama, but that's the kind of impact that he could have on the league in the next couple of seasons is how do we deal with him? What's the counter to him? Because if we can't deal with him, then we can't do anything. Like our entire goal needs to be, how do we defeat this team? I really think that's a possibility if San Antonio builds their roster correctly over the next couple of seasons. And what that answer is right now is pretty unclear. Obviously, teams are going to try and be physical with him, try and out rebound, try and make sure that they're getting him out of the lane, forcing him to be a perimeter oriented player. But at a certain point, his impact is just felt so strongly that it might get to the point where teams are with Jokic right now, where you can't really do anything when Jokic is on the floor. You can't really do anything when Wemby is on the floor, but you can try and win those 10 to 12 minutes that those guys aren't playing because they are bigger guys. They're not going to play 48 minutes. And you can just try and win those minutes that they're off and try and keep it close when they're on. That might be the point that we get to. That might be the Wemby counter. That's where we are with Jokic right now, at least. I just think it's really important to keep that in mind and understand that this is not normal. Like a rookie starting their career off like this, especially when you have as much hype around you as Wemby does, is not supposed to happen. There's supposed to be some bumps in the road. There's supposed to be some resistance being felt. You're not supposed to immediately be a defensive player of the year caliber player. You're not supposed to immediately be potentially an all-star this season. And Wemby is right there. And yes, some of the stats are inflated by a couple of really, really good shooting games, and there's going to be nights where he doesn't shoot the ball well. But what makes him unique is that impact that he can have on the defensive end of the floor. And it's not just rim protection. It's not just guarding guys individually. It's everywhere. His side of the floor, he impacts that side of the floor so much that there's just nothing that teams can do other than just like move away from him. Like he literally shuts down one side of the floor because of his length, his ability to contest shots. He's blocked a ton of threes. He has so many blocks already this season. And it's not just, okay, we got this really great offensive player, someone like Zion a couple of years ago that everybody was excited about what he would do at the NBA level. It's not just that impact. You can wait on Wemby to become a more consistent outside shooter, a more consistent offensive player. He's still really good there, but the defensive impact has been incredible. And again, I think teams are going to start to think over the next couple of seasons, how do we counter this guy? Do we need a Kristaps Porzingis kind of player that at least is a similar size and length? Do we need a Rudy Gobert kind of guy that is a similar size and length? Or is the archetype going to be a really strong 6'9" wing that we can put on Wemby and try and guard him? The problem is, again, you can have counters to what he is offensively, but is there a counter to what he is defensively, or are we just going to be looking at the next Spurs dynasty here? It's a terrifying thought. It truly, truly is. That's how good Wemby is already, and I'm really interested to see if teams start to adjust and think differently about how they want to build their rosters just because of how good Wemby has been already.